welcome to the Undercurrent News podcast. And I'm very delighted to be joined by Shai Silberman of AquaMaof, the Vice President of Marketing and Sales. We're at a super interesting moment with the development of land-based aquaculture. And so, Shai, welcome, and I'm very glad that you can join me with this podcast.
Thank you very much.
Great. So the context to this is that we've just right now publishing this week a report jointly with Undercurrent News on the development of land-based aquaculture, and a lot's been going on in the last year or so. There's been 2 or 3 years of extraordinary investor interest in this sector, and maybe this year things have changed as 1 or 2 leading projects have experienced difficulties. Shai, how would you sum up what's going on right now in terms of the development of these big land-based aquaculture grow-out projects, and perhaps the investor sentiment to these developments?
Okay, so I think first of all that there is no debate on the situation that the RAS system it's the ultimate solution in order to bridge the gap between the traditional aquaculture and the demand that we have. Yes, we have some challenges, but at the end, this is something that everybody will need it, and we use it, and we see it, by the way, with investors that's still coming. Yes, they are more careful in many steps that they are doing, do more in-depth inquiries, but this is something that will happen, and we can elaborate later about our projects, but we are in full steam.
Yeah, and in actual fact, we noticed when we were crunching the numbers that AquaMaof is involved in an enormous amount of projects right now that are under construction, and also perhaps one of the most globally focused engineering group players with a lot more activity outside of Scandinavia, for example. One or two of the others are, Billund and Agfa are very Norway focused, but we noticed that AquaMaof is leading this huge development of projects around the world. Do you think, like maybe in a year or 2 from now, people will look at land-based industry differently because some of these projects come online and we see them operating successfully?
Yes, I'm quite sure. I think again that we have some challenges down the road, but at least from our side, AquaMaof operating 2 R&D facilities that all the time trying to enhance the facilities and the technology. We have a very good outcome from our facility in Poland, and we have a lot of visitors that coming, and they see to believe, what we call, see that this is the ultimate solution for the production of especially fish like salmon and other lucrative fish. Right.
That's great. And how's it going right now with some of the leading projects that you're working on? There's projects like the Proxima project in Japan, and very big works of engineering. How are those projects going, and do you think they'll be successful?
That for sure. We see that we have a timeline, and we stick to the timeline. Obviously, you saw some of the advertising that you have on the social media about the progress that we have in those projects, like in Japan, near the Fuji Mountain and Proxima, and in Vologda in Russia. And hopefully we're going to conclude those projects by the next year. So you will see those 2 projects already operating and starting to produce fish.
That's great. And we've really been looking at this space since about 2017 and 2018. And for my mind, that's when this whole interest in, at least in the salmon space, really took off, huge interest in these projects. Do you think the technology has evolved even further, maybe in the last couple of years, where there's been some debate about how biofilters work and certain elements of the system? Do you think we're more advanced now than we maybe were a year or two ago?
I can speak, on behalf of AquaMaof, and as I mentioned, we have two R&D centers, one in Israel, in the desert, and the other one in Poland. And if I want to be very specific, we learn a lot, especially from our Nordic partners, and we're doing some researches on many things, and there are things that we are now know better than we knew, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago. And
Right.
This is why we did some progress in the technology, and we know how to address a couple things that, let's say, 3 years ago, nobody knew about it.
Right. That's great. Well, could you elaborate a little bit on that? Which areas do you think you have more control of now than maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think that let's take one example. I think that the off flavor that all the industry talk about, especially with RAS, we developed a specific technique that right now we can give you an obligation about the off flavor, and we have a very good outcome in that sense. So this is a very good example of things that 3 years ago we had some fish that we had some off flavor, and today this is something that we already addressed.
Right, that's great. Thank you. And this year we've had 1 or 2, big developments that some other people we've spoken to in webinars and podcasts have said that that this was made a real change to the industry. We see Atlantic Sapphire and this big development. It's kind of the front runner of the industry, and everybody watches those monthly updates. And do you think that that has really changed the way investors are looking at this sector, and do you think it will even affect the rate of development of new projects?
First of all, I want to wish good luck for Atlantic Sapphire. I think, as you described, this is they are in the front in that sense. I think that, and this is something that we working a different philosophy, AquaMaof technology. And I think, and I mentioned it before, that because of many things, by the way, it's not only what's happening right now in the industry, it's also referring to the COVID and other things that the give influence on the investment as a whole. Investor looking into the details, okay? They asking more questions, more in-depth knowledge, okay? And they want to be more educated on the RAS system and not take it as it is, okay? And this is I think the main challenge that we have right now, but we love it because the more the investor know about, you can convince more, and it's engage all those investors, and when you have any challenges, they supporting you.
Right. That's great. And the other question I wanted to ask you about the current state of the industry is just the space that you're involved in, the engineering companies. We've seen, Aqua Group align with another major investor to go for more projects globally. At the same time, yourselves, there's been a slight change in strategy with no longer working with ATEF, the company that's developing this portfolio of salmon farms. But at the same time, we see AquaMaof as being involved in so many different projects around the world. How would you describe your company's strategy right now in terms of how you develop? We've seen AquaMaof buying equity stakes in some projects, for example. Will you continue to do that type of thing?
Yeah, for sure. It's a good question. It's all start from the background of the DNA of AquaMaof. AquaMaof started as fish producers, and the people that established the company came from, if you're familiar with the term kibbutz, they came from kibbutz. Yeah. And as a little child, our CTO, and also you're familiar with Yoav, our business development VP, they both of them, at least Neder is a third generation of fish farmers. So we have the ability, and we want to be part of this industry, not only from the technology part, okay, but also from the production. We know that the big margin, you can do it by producing fish. And having saying so, the DNA of the company, bring it together with a good technology, and we believe in our technology, push us into the situation that we want to invest and to be part of this industry, not to to implement only project, but to be partners in this industry and to make money. It's not something that's not rude to say so. So I think that I answered the question here.
Yeah, that's perfect. Actually, one of the surprising things that came out of the data from our report is the fact that there's currently about 15 or so salmon farms under construction. There was a time, I think, when investors were very receptive to developing these farms, and there are lots of farms under construction. The average capacity of these farms is about 10 times the capacity of existing operating facilities. It's something like about 4,000 tons versus 400 tons. So maybe Atlantic Sapphire won't be alone in showing the world if this technology really works. How do you guys feel about that? Do you think that this generation of new farms will maybe show that this technology is more feasible than people think?
First of all, I think that when you're talking about the numbers, it's all about economy of scale. If you see the newcomers that invested in the mega project, as we said, the 4,000 ton, the 5,000, 10,000 tons, it all comes from economy of scale. The more higher you go, the less investment per kg you're going to do. I'm talking about the capex, and as well, it's referring also to the opex. And when you have on the other side, you have high demand with very good price, this is the way. Go big. This is the way.
Yeah, yeah. Because we've heard some, at some of the recent webinars on RAS, we've heard other people, especially some of the Norwegian companies, saying, actually test this technology out on a small scale and go through the learning process for a year and then scale up. So there does seem to be a couple of different points of view with that.
Yeah, I think that it's the RAS system. It's not something that somebody during the night they decided to go and to set a startup of RAS. It's not a brand new technology. It's something that we know for at least 30 years, okay? All what we need now is to enhance the technology and to adjust it to the magnitude of the production, okay? So yes, there are a lot of unknown things that you have to explore, and this is why AquaMaof holds and run 2 facilities that it's an R&D. But I think that we know and we believe in, at least in our technology, that it's something that you can do. It's not something, we will not go for any project that at the end it will be a failure, okay? So I think that in that sense, AquaMaof go for big.
Right, okay, perfect. Yeah, I guess that the other question remaining on, the salmon industry, that we've seen 1 or 2 of the big salmon companies now saying, yeah, we'll experiment with this technology for grow out. We've seen Greek Seafood do this. We've seen Leroy mention it at a certain point. Do you think we'll see more of the big salmon farmers, actually developing a grow out project, or maybe even just, buying one or two of these companies that are developing projects?
As I mentioned, I think that in order to address the demand versus the constraints that you have in the traditional industry, you need to have some tools to bridge the gap. And sorry that I repeat what I said, but this is the power that push everything to the RAS system, to the whole cycle. Adding to that, the revolution that you have, that in order to also bridge the gap between what we saw and experienced in the COVID, that you have a lockdown in some of the countries, and you cannot import food. You need to locate those sites near the markets. It means that you need to set those RAS facilities. And this is why you are going to do, you're going to see more facilities in various countries, okay? And you're going to see countries that never been in the industry, and especially in the salmon industry, and now they are becoming one of the producers. And one of them you can see in Japan, and especially you can see in China, you will see, and in the US, okay, and even in Europe, although Europe quite close to the main hub, the Nordic hub of salmon producing.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. And let's talk a little bit about other species now. Wrapping this up, and this year, as our part of our report, we've looked at other species for the first time, and I think the two big take homes for me was that there's a lot of people trying to develop shrimp projects right now. I think most of them are quite small, but there are one or two exceptions and pretty big projects. I know that AquaMaof is developing this technology through its subsidiary EcoShrimp. Just wondered if you could tell me a little bit about that, and if you think that I don't want to say land-based shrimp, because all shrimp farms are on land, but using modern technology, recirculating, that type of thing.
Yeah, okay. So we have a daughter company called EcoShrimp, and we have an R&D, as I mentioned, in the desert in Israel, that producing the shrimps. And right now we in the process of looking for investors that will set one of the facilities that we intend to do, let's say next year. And I see a very, very good future for the RAS with the shrimps, because it's a huge market, huge potential. Yeah. And we have a very good outcomes in our facility in the desert, which give us the strength and the confidence that we are in the right way.
Right, right. What type of region would you look at to develop with investors? Which one would make the most sense? Which region would you look for?
Which region?
Yeah.
We're looking right now. We're looking into regions that can pay a lot, pay good price for the shrimps. We're looking into Europe. Okay, we're looking into the US, North America, and in some cases in the Far East.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. It seems like there's several projects in Europe, and some of those projects are actually managing to sell. Well, I think one of the surprising things for me is that some of these projects that are actually selling shrimp are managing to capture quite high prices, and it's not difficult for them to sell the shrimp. That people are captivated by the idea, right? It seems like an interesting opportunity, but then bridging the gap between the cost of production with the big tropical pond farming. I don't think these farms will produce at the same cost, right? That seems to be unrealistic.
The answer is yes and no. Right now, we're working in order to, and this is the main agenda for our R&D, to see how we can reduce dramatically the cost of production. We succeeded in some cases. We still have some way to do it, but obviously at the end of the day, the cost will be reduced dramatically. Otherwise, there is no use for setting such facilities, because it will cost a lot of money.
Right. What areas need to be? What areas have you had success with at the R&D level, and what areas need some further improvements?
I think that the main achievement here is the density. We develop a technique that can make a very high density with the shrimps. We still have some things to enhance in the sense of the cost of construction. And this is something that we need also to work on, but we had a lot of achievements with the density and with the harvesting and the taste, and this is very encouraging.
Yeah, and I guess that's a problem with all projects right now, that the construction costs have spiraled with just the cost of materials, right? That must be affecting the entire industry.
Right. This is the major. I think that these days this is one of the major problem that we have with the price increasing in the raw materials. This is one of the main challenges that we have now. But I think that since we are, let's say, the goal here is to reduce dramatically the cost of construction, so it will go down. And by the way, we think that in about let's say half a year from now, we will see the prices will go down. Maybe not so dramatically, but they will go down.
Right. Well, when you talk about shortages, do you guys foresee a shortage of fish in the market generally in most markets of other types of species?
Yeah, we know for sure that there is a shortage in the grouper, for example.
Right.
Yeah, and the flounder, for example, and other species. There is a lot of researchers on those, let's say, variety of species. And if we cannot see it right now, it will happen, as I mentioned, in about a year or two. And we need to be prepared. The industry need to be prepared and to support those kind of new species.
Yeah. Which and I'm curious about the catfish project, because I think there's a theory that RAS is suitable for expensive fish in developed markets. But that's not necessarily the case. It works wherever a farmer can make a profit, right? And I think what the comment I've heard from 2 or 3 developers of catfish in a RAS system is, okay, it's a cheap fish, but the densities can be super high, and the economics actually work in some of these countries.
Right.
I think that's what you've said with the Slovakia project, that the economics are pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think absolutely agree with you. I think that it's a combination of many things. It's a combination of price, density, the price of the construction, because for example, you don't need, like salmon, you need to grow the fish for 2 years, and there is an impact on the cost of the size of the facility. When you can condense or you can have a very high density, and the fish needs to be at the ponds not more than a year, it says, so you have a very you have an incentive to invest in such facility, because the cost of those kind of facilities will be much less than the investment that you see when you have lucrative fish such as salmon, for example.
Right. That's great. Do you think, but very final question, but do you think maybe 5 years from now we'll see that there'll be land-based farms will make up more of the world's fish supply. I mean, now it's a fraction, right? But do you think it's going to be much more in a few years' time?
I have full confidence that this will be the case. As I mentioned, so many constraints, and what happening now with the environment, what we saw, the convention that we saw in Scotland, the humankind needs such a tool to support, on one hand, to feed the population on one hand, on the other hand, to support the environment. And this is RAS.
Yeah, that's perfect. Good way to end it. Well, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Shai. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
And I'm sure, people can get in touch with AquaMaof, visit the website and take a look. There's a lot of projects there that the company showcases. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.